Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Toasted. Really nice to be here with you again. And we're really excited to kind of launch a new phase of the show today. We've brought on our very first guest. Tracy Marchionda is going to join us today to talk about some of her thoughts about failure. And as we've said before, Tracy's been a huge prophetic voice for the show, and we're really excited to sit down and talk with her.
Yeah, so welcome, Tracy.
Well, I'm very excited to be here. Thanks. Sorry, go ahead, Margie.
No, we're really excited to be here. Nick and I, it's one of these really exciting things when you think about how life crisscrosses and the idea of failure, and each of those points led it so that the three of us have our own friendships with each other and the connections that the three of us share. And so it's just really, this is one of those things that you say, this is part of the beauty and the excitement of the process of the journey of going forward. So yay. So welcome. We're so excited. Our very first guest. Yay.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I'm fangirling, even though I know you guys
so
professionally and fortunately as friends now. Super fangirling.
Well, that's good because this
really
is definitely not professional. And you see the pre-show planning and how that goes. So I'll just leave that one there.
That's fine.
It is fun, right?
Yeah,
We're fun.
Yeah.
We are fun people. So I was in my very, very first administrative role. And that is how I knew Tracy. Tracy was at district office and was a huge, mentor, support. And it was at a district at the time. One of Tracy's big initiatives was the multi-language program and bilingual education. And that opened up all new professional insights and doors and growth and ability for me to grow as a professional and to understand how to better serve students. So I am so grateful for my very first administrative experience to be with you, Tracy, and have you as a mentor in my life for so many things. And then I moved on to other districts. And then later on, Nick ends up going to that same district working with Tracy. I'll let you tell that, Nick.
Well, actually, funny enough, I had left one job, which is probably a whole nother podcast in and of itself. But I left one job and I called Margie and I was like, I don't know what to do next. And I was kind of almost leaning towards not going back into education. Mm-hmm. And Margie said, well, actually, I think my friend over in Geneva is looking for an MTSS coach. And I was like, well, I don't even know what that is, really. But I know what MTSS is and I know what coaching is, but I'd never heard of anybody with an MTSS coach. So I wrote Tracy and went and interviewed. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a really cool position. And it was. Had a good experience for a year. And had I not been offered the position in Finger Lakes Community College teaching English, which was always kind of my dream job, I would probably still be there, but had a good time. And it was really nice to work with Tracy and study under her style. So
my style.
Her style. That's right. So anyway, we're really excited to have you.
Yes, the only time I will say, so Tracy definitely loves festivities, and that is one of her superpowers is bringing people together and doing it in hospitality and always with lots of fun. And so at the time she was doing two jobs. She had bounced back to interim principal of the building, and it was Halloween. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't dress up on Halloween to come to work. She's like, yeah, you're going to. So the only time in my entire career that I've ever dressed up on Halloween to go to school was that year with Tracy. So she is, definitely the ambassador of fun. So we thank you for that.
Well, the little known secret is I actually hate dressing up for Halloween.
So do I.
Interesting.
Yes. And I became a principal in a different district in a primary school, and the secretary said to me, so what are you going to be for Halloween? I'm like, oh, I don't dress up for Halloween. She's like, oh, you do? I'm like, no, I don't. And she said, listen, the routine here, the ritual here is there is a huge Halloween parade, and all of the students in our primary school get dressed up, including their teachers, and they take this big community walkthrough, and the principal leads them. I was like, crap.
Yes.
So at the time, my grandmother was still alive, and she was a seamstress, and I called her, and I'm like, Grandma, I need your help. She's like, what's the matter, honey? She had to have been, I don't know, 80 something. And I said, I need a Halloween costume. She's like, I got you. What do you want to be? I said, well, I don't know. She's like, how about Cinderella? I said, okay. And she made me, for many years when I was that principal, she made me my costume every year, hand sewn. I had I still have the most beautiful Cinderella costume. Yeah. Yeah. So this year, and we can get to it, but I'm in a different district doing some interim work, and two of the people that I work with said, hey, we'd really like you to be a part of our Halloween dress up group. I'm like, crap. I'm like, oh, how nice to be included. Thank you so much. I'd love to. Mm-hmm. Yep. So,
well, now I know where to go for costumes. I didn't know that last year when my son had his wedding reception. Yeah, it was a costumed reception. And so could have gone shopping in your closet.
I have buckets and buckets of costumes. Yeah.
Yay.
And I hate every minute of it.
It's funny.
See, I love theater and costumes, but not Halloween.
I know you do. And I was in theater.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I was in an elementary school, and the one thing they said was, like, doesn't matter. You kind of you can do whatever you want, but if you cancel the Halloween parade, that's going to be a problem. That was like the one like major rule. Like in the last year, it was like thunderstorms, and I was like, I can't have it outside. Like we just can't. And so tried to do it inside, but it's just not the same. But you can't control the weather, so
no, you can't.
But I was much less willing to dress up. So my the folks who worked in the office would always say, "Oh, Halloween's coming. Like, what are you going to be?" I was like, "I don't know, whatever you dress me up as." So one year I ended up being Willy Wonka.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of strange. I got to be honest with you that it had a real strong resemblance to a pimp outfit, and that made me kind of uncomfortable. But I don't know.
Pictures.
I wasn't quite sure. I was like, all right, well, there are pictures, and I'm sure that at some point now, after this airs, they will surface. But
I'm sure.
Anyway,
and I'm sure people want to see those pictures. That is incredible. So this has been the most interesting intro, I think, so far to date. Not that we have this litany of episodes, but definitely the most interesting to date. So cheers, Tracy. We're so happy that you're here. And it is morning, which is why all of us have our coffee. So cheers. And Nick, where are you? There you go. Okay, cheers. There
I'm here.
All right.
Can I talk about coffee for just a minute?
Please.
We hope so. Yes.
Okay. Well, first, the mug, right? Like the mug has meaning. It's Snoopy. I've been a Snoopy fan since my grandmother that I spoke about gave me my first Snoopy. I don't even remember it, but I still have him. And unfortunately, he's pretty threadbare and falling apart, and he's actually in a coffin. I know it sounds morbid, but yeah, my dad's friend made me a coffin for him. Maybe sometime in the future, Snoopy could join us. Yeah, but I'm going to do a shameless plug for coffee because I am a coffee purist. I have props.
I
this is okay. You keep watching, Margie. I've got many. So Chock full of Nuts is a very old, unique brand. I'm not sure that anybody purchases Chock full of Nuts coffee except Tracy Marchionda. But I keep a can always on hand. Growing up, it was either Folgers or Maxwell House, right? Do you remember those days? Those were like your two choices.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And when I first started drinking coffee, I was married. And I was like, this stuff sucks. I don't like either one of these. So then I went to Dunkin' Donuts, which I thought was like the best coffee on the face of the earth. Turns out it's not. And my husband and I were at a bed and breakfast in Cape Cod many years ago now. Lovely, two gentlemen owned it. They put out this lovely breakfast spread. And I said to my husband, this is the best coffee I've ever had. I have to ask them. So I tiptoed into the kitchen and interrupted. And I said, what is the coffee? I'm expecting like some private roast, something unique. It was chock full of nuts. I've never gone back.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Very consistent.
I will not drink anything
very
else.
Consistent.
Yep, it is. It is. I know exactly how many scoops. I don't let my husband make the coffee.
Oh, Doug. So what kind of coffee maker do you have?
I just have a drip. I think it's Cuisinart. I don't like Keurig coffee. I don't very seldom buy Dunkin' Donuts coffee anymore. No problem with Dunkin' Donuts. I don't want anybody to get upset about that. But yeah,
Yeah,
Chock
well,
full of nuts
American
is
may
where it's
run
at.
on. Yeah, America may run on Dunkin', but Tracy Marchionda runs on chock full of nuts.
Right.
So,
And there's
Nick, do
even a
you
whole thing
brew
on it
your
that says
coffee,
this
or are you
coffee,
Keurig? What do you do?
I
contains no nuts, by the way, just in case. Sorry.
That's good to know.
Seriously,
So
it does.
That's funny.
I'm sure there's people with nut allergies that
concerned.
Yeah. Ingredients.
I wonder.
Coffee.
I wonder why they call it chock full of nuts.
I don't know. I have to do a
Well,
little
Chock full
history.
of Nuts Company, if you could clarify for us, we invite Chock full of Nuts to share the rich and very long history. I mean, Chock full of Nuts is an older, certainly an older coffee brand
Since 1932.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
I could sing you the jingle, but I won't.
Oh, darn.
Wow.
I know. So, Nick, what is your coffee maker of choice?
My coffee? I'll drink. I got to be honest with you that I'm not I'm a major coffee drinker, like pots. I probably measure in pots rather than glasses or cups, but I'll pretty much drink anything. My honest favorite is Leftist by
Never heard of it.
What's the one out of Ithaca? Give Me Coffee. Leftist Coffee is my favorite brew that they do, and they do actually sell that now in the Tracy, what's the place in Penyan there? Amity, which is nice. That's like the closest place because I live in Naples, so I have to drive a half hour to get my favorite coffee. But I do really like
it's worth it.
Give Me Coffee a lot.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
are you? Although when you live in Naples, you drive a half hour to do anything.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yes, it is a dark roast.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a dark roast girl myself. But see, I like the French press. I just finished, put them last in my mug, but I love the French press. I think that makes the best cup of coffee, the flavor, the everything. And it's, it's a little more work, a little more time, but it is worth it. And if you are a coffee purist, if you drink your coffee black, to me, it's worth every minute of it. So, well, coffee, look at us with our little coffee chat.
Mm-hmm. Cheers.
Cheers. So good. All right. So Tracy, tell us a story.
Tell you a story about failure, right? Like that's the theme.
It is. And seeing it as a superpower. So, rising through, all of that.
Yeah. So, there was something that, of course, like I said, I'm fangirling. So I've been listening to every episode. I know you're only 3 in, but I can't wait for this week. I'm like, is it Thursday yet? Where is number 3? And then I watch it on the way, or I watch it. I listen to it either on the way to work or the way home. I texted you guys this week.
I was concerned. I'm not now. Okay. Yes.
Why were you concerned?
Thank you for that. When you said you watched it on the way, I was a little nervous there, Tracy.
Gotcha.
I was like, oh.
Yeah.
We don't advocate that.
Nick said something, I don't remember which episode, but he was talking about, you had been given a full scholarship to RIT and you made the decision not to go and you didn't consider that failure. So I got really thinking about, where in my life would I define failures? And then that took me as I started thinking about them. So the first thing that came to mind was as a freshman, entering freshman, I tried out for the cheerleading team. I had been a cheerleader. I know you can see that. And I didn't make the team as a freshman. I was horrified. I was mortified. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, all of these people are going to be talking about Tracy didn't make the cheerleading squad. Because that, you either, in my day, you either played girls soccer or you were a cheerleader. That was it. There were a few volleyball players, but that wasn't a big sport for us. And so I remember thinking, oh my God, I can't go to freshman year in high school. I didn't make the cheerleading squad.
And it's that big of a deal. It is.
Yeah. And so at the time, I considered that failure. And interestingly enough, the soccer coach called me, and she had been my elementary PE teacher. And she said, Tracy, I know you didn't make the cheerleading team, but it's okay. I actually think you're a soccer player. Please come play for me. And I was like, no, I can't do it. She had varsity players call me. Like, she had this whole community
Wow.
that kind of was like, you're not one of them. You're one of us. The sad thing was I was so caught up in this failure that I never went out for the soccer team. And I didn't do anything the fall of my freshman year. And that put me in a very different route of, I was aware enough to know that I was headed down a path in high school that I didn't want to be. And because we know that kids who are connected in some way to a community at high school will have a better outcome. We know that's research based.
Absolutely.
And so, in hindsight, retrospect, like that failure froze me at the time. And in hindsight,
you
had I gone out,
you were caught up in it. Like that, when you said you were caught up in it, like that defined you, like it surrounded you and you were caught up in it. And that becomes its own cage. It becomes its own jail cell. And I think that is a really important piece to acknowledge. And like you said, it defined then the trajectory of that freshman year and how you defined yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I started hanging out with, I started dating a senior. So, and at the time the drinking age was 18. So, and it wasn't a thing if kids drank in high school. And, not that I drank a lot, but I was with this group of older kids that I shouldn't have been with. What my parents were thinking, I don't know, to allow me to go out with these group of people. But, at some point I came to the realization, like, that's not really what I want to do. Like, it's fun to go out and hang out with these people, but my boyfriend at the time was getting smashed and I'd have to call my parents to come pick me up, or I'd have to go ask his parents to take me home. And I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I've got to do something else. But, that being frozen in failure. And I think not going for the soccer team was twofold, right? Like it was, I just can't get out of this failure of not being a cheerleader, but it was also the fear of failing again. What if I did go out for that team and didn't make it? And then that got me thinking
embarrassed myself, or people said, why are you there? Oh, we're so, I heard you didn't make cheerleading. So that, it's that fear of the public, like just the same as being frozen going to a grocery store. It's just that, how do I face what could possibly be said? And what do they think of me? Yeah.
And it was the story in my head, because the soccer players and the coach kept calling me, and she drove to my house and she's like, come on, like, I know you're a soccer player. And I just couldn't get out of my own way. They weren't talking about me not making cheerleading. I was talking about it.
Right.
Like, they were like, come be with us. And, I didn't play soccer again until I went to college, and I played club soccer and I loved it. Like, I wasn't like Division I soccer player, but I still feel like in my head, even though that was many years ago, I can hold my own on a soccer field. But I haven't played in a long time.
We should be a team, because I think, Nick, you were a soccer player, correct?
Were you a soccer player? I wasn't. I'm from a soccer town, but I'm not.
Okay.
I'm probably better than average, but my friends were all like, they all played in college. So, or most of them went on to play at least some college soccer. And I just couldn't hang with them. But Tracy, to your point, that's so fascinating. The idea of like the narrative, that the story you tell yourself in some ways is the story that becomes reality. Right. And that's kind of the central premise of this podcast, is just like, we are the ones in charge of what story we tell. Right. And the problem is that too often we bottle up the story, and then that narrative never gets challenged. And so, like, this talking them through, I think, is where you start to get alternative opinions. It's like when you discuss, when you're in a literature class or whatever, you discuss a piece of writing and you go into it with like this one idea about how the story what the story means, or sometimes I even say how the story means. But then when you talk about it as a group, you get all these different perspectives on that story, and suddenly it means something very different, you know. And there's that really great YouTube or TED Talk. I don't know. I think you've seen it. The Danger of a Single Story. It's kind of the same idea, right? Like that story we tell ourselves becomes
writing that down.
so powerful.
Yeah, and that, just going back to that soccer story, in my head, the story was, I'm not a cheerleader. In the soccer team and the soccer coaches story, it was, you are a soccer player, and I couldn't get there at that time. And I was a freshman.
Sure.
For goodness sake, what are you, 14 when you're a freshman? And I think about the other times in my life that I would, because thinking about, when you asked me to come on here, I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Like, my professional story is a little different than both of yours. And my personal life story is a little different than what you two have discussed. But I think about, I have another whole different take on failure, but the times in my life where I let the fear of failure hold me back are probably where I would define failure. And
I can feel that. Yeah.
like not taking a risk or not going and trying something. And I'm sure those decisions led me to where I am now. Like, I think about, I had an offer right out of college to go to another college in another state. I also had job offers in southern states, and I was too afraid to go by myself. I was too afraid about, like, who would I be friends with? Because I'm a social person.
Right.
Who would I, how would I meet? I wasn't dating anybody really at the time. I mean, my husband and I were friends and we were hanging out, but we weren't really a couple. And, like, who would I date? Where would I go grocery shopping? Where am I going to live? Like, all of those narratives started playing in my head. Now, they would have led me a different course. I probably wouldn't be where I am today. But I think the fear of failure for me has been a changer for me. I don't have regrets,
well, especially
right?
when you've been, I mean, as a person who, and I don't know if this is correct or not, so please, jump in, but like, if you've been an achiever, which, my knowledge of you is as an achiever. And even if that's defined as, I have groups of friends, I'm a social person. So for me, an achievement is I have this group of friends and I enjoy that. And that feeds my soul. So the idea of fear of failure that includes that aspect of it, who would I be friends with? Who would I that? So to not make the cheerleading team your freshman year as a very social person who has to, face friends and be like, I didn't make the cheerleading. You can't hide that, you're not on the team, So that impact of that can then, I think, become that fear of failure, because that experience was so difficult and so encompassing that even if you don't consciously realize you don't want to go to that space again, it's there. It's there somewhere rattling around as this wound that who wants to relive something like that? So moving to a whole new state, moving to that, or doing some of those riskier things, that fear of it is like, I don't want to feel that feeling again. Right. I don't want to explain to people I didn't make it. I don't want to have them console me when it's like, no, I don't, And so I think that's something that is impactful that we often don't realize is hearkening back to something that gave us that fear of failure.
Right. And
the other thing I just wanted to tag on there is, like, when you think about the idea, Margie, last time we talked about pivoting, and how important and how scary pivoting can be, right? So in a pivot is really saying, and we talked about this a little bit too, like just saying yes, right? Sometimes that's what it is. And like in this case, Tracy's talking about is like, the problem a lot of times is that fear of failure keeps us from pivoting. And I think I'm going to take this back to the Artist Way. I think a lot of what the Artist Way was about is just starting to say yes to experiences and starting to like open up to the idea that, like, okay, yes, you failed in this one thing at one time, but that doesn't mean that every door is now closed to you, right? It's like, just because you didn't make the cheerleading team doesn't mean your entire life is over. Although in that moment, it can really feel that way.
Right.
And if
And it. I told you, I kind of came to this realization, which looking back, I think for a 14-year-old to realize that I have control over the things I want to do, and I can go one route, or I can go another route, or I can go another route. And I credit that a lot to my parents. Like, they were always encouraging, no matter what I wanted to do. They were like, okay, if that's what you want to do, then go do it, work hard, and do it well. And I remember signing up. It was time for cheerleading tryouts for the winter for the basketball team. And I remember thinking, do I want to try it? And I was like, yeah, I want to try it. And you know what? I made the team, and I never stopped at that point. You can say what you want about cheerleading, but for me, it was my community, and really, still one of my very best friends is the person I hung out with on the cheerleading team. And still to this day, however many years ago that was, we still are best of friends. And it, I didn't let that failure, thank God, it stopped me momentarily in the blink of an eye as compared to the whole life of Tracy Marchionda. But I had enough, whatever that was, to say, you know what, I'm going to try again. And if I fail, I fail. I'll have to figure out what life is like for me at that point. And, I think, I don't know. I just think back other times when I wouldn't try something, it was because of fear of failure. I did fail at retirement, by the way.
That's huge.
Oh yeah, you definitely stink at that.
Margie,
Nick, did you at all think that would be anything different than what it is?
No.
I have to say, when you announced retirement, I'm like, yeah, it's not retirement. It's what's next. You might not be this full time, right, but you have a what's next, and you have about 15 what's next. So
yeah. So so for people who don't know, I retired August 1st this year after 33 years in public education, and I'm not good about talking about myself, but I did the things in education I wanted to do, but I knew I wasn't done. So I retired for 3 weeks, and I had so many.
That's huge.
It is huge. I had so many things to do, right? Like, I love working in my flower beds. I have beautiful flower beds because I was able for 3 weeks to focus. My flowers this year are better than ever because for 3 weeks I tended to them every day. We grew a beautiful garden. I have never been able to grow a garden. My husband and I planted a garden this year. And again, I would go out every morning religiously. Like, I put myself into a routine. I would pull weeds. I would water. I would, pick whatever produce. I learned how to can. I learned how to make donuts. Like, this is all within just 3 weeks' time. I cleaned every closet in my house. I even organized all of our Band-Aids. Seriously.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So this right here, if people, this is a window into who Tracy Marchionda is. So 3 weeks in Tracy Marchionda time is like 3 years for the rest of us humans. In 3 years,
true.
I may have accomplished that. But in Tracy Marchionda time, it's a 3-week venture.
I read 3 books, like, just for fun.
See, that's what I mean.
Yeah, like craziness.
I love it. That's awesome.
The day that
I'm so glad you enjoyed your retirement to its fullest.
It was great.
That you took some time, you rested.
I went to Boston and spent an extended weekend with my son and his his girlfriend, his significant other.
Did you bring donuts and some of your canned goods?
I sure did. Yep, I sure did. Yep, pickles.
Of course you did.
I made pickles, like, seriously, in 3 weeks.
Yum,
but the
pickles.
day I organized the Band-Aids, because I don't know if you're like this, but you're like, you know what, I should buy some Band-Aids, or I have FSA money, flex spending money to spend up at the end of the year. I'm going to buy a 400 pack of Band-Aids. So I was cleaning the bathroom closet.
Armageddon Band-Aids, people. If you need Band-Aids during the end of the world, Tracy has them.
Yeah. So I'm cleaning out the bathroom closet one day, and I'm like, dear Lord, I have so many Band-Aids, and they're a mess. How could anybody ever find a Band-Aid? So I had these they're just little, like, stackable things, And I separated them all by size and I labeled them. And my husband comes home from work that day and he's like, how was retirement today? I'm like, I organized the Band-Aids. And he just looked at me with all seriousness and said, my Lord, woman, you have to go back to work. And you know what was missing for me in retirement? Was people. Like, I could fill 6 hours with things that were, I don't know, rejuvenating and fun. And I never felt like I've got to find something to do. Like, I found things to do. I could not go 6 hours, 7 hours a day without people. And so I went.
No, you are a people person.
I went back to
Absolutely.
work.
Absolutely. Of course, you are a true extrovert. You are energized by people, energized by being around people, all of those things. And I love that. That is hilarious. That is the most successful failure ever. Band-Aids are well organized now. I have a rule that I only buy fun Band-Aids. I refuse to buy plain Band-Aids because why? If you're going to, have an opportunity for something fun, have something fun. So
I have no fun Band-Aids, Margie.
Fun Band-Aids. They have to have
none. They're all.
I'm sorry, 400 and none of them.
Not one is fun.
Oh, I've got superhero Band-Aids. I've got, you name it. Yeah.
I would like to have fun Band-Aids.
You guys, I'm so boring.
I would like to have fun Band-Aids.
I'm boring and disorganized.
I also may not buy another Band-Aid. I have too many.
You shouldn't.
So if there's a shortage of Band-Aids, I got everybody in Yates County covered.
You do. That's a good thing.
Like I'm starting to feel like I feel like a failure just because like I finally stopped just putting medicine under the cabinet and actually put it in a Tupperware. So I thought that was like organized. So I have it's like my first aid box, I call it, all the medicines are in there. And there's one box of Band-Aids. They are not fun because I found that if I buy fun Band-Aids, my kids go through them. I have 3 boys, so we go through a lot of Band-Aids, but
yes,
if they're fun, then they just start using them like stickers.
Well, maybe that's why I have bought so many Band-Aids from having 2 boys and a husband who is always working with his hands, cutting hands. I don't know. Or maybe I'm obsessed.
I just go and fast forward and I don't know. I injure myself because that's me. I just am always ramming around way too much.
Hey everyone. Thanks a lot for listening to this episode of Toasted. Apologize for the delayed release, but it took a little bit longer to produce this one. I learned a lot along the way. And after all, that's the whole point of what we're doing here. By the way, if you like the podcast, if you like the YouTube videos, it's really helpful if you like them, subscribe, or leave a review. So next week, we'll release the second half of our conversation with Tracy Marchionda. But until then, we'd like to say cheers and thanks a lot for listening.